The truth about female desire is putting 8 women's sex lives under the microscope. These women have agreed to take part in a series of experiments designed by the world's leading sexual scientists to try and unravel the secrets of female sexuality. So far this series, the women have learned that the most sensitive part of their bodies is hidden from view and that they may not even know when they're physically aroused. They've found out why they're attracted to certain kinds of men and not others, and that they can even get turned on by watching monkeys. In today's programme, we're going to explore the precise nature of female sex drive and the factors which influence it. We'll be taking our girls into the laboratory to put them under scientific scrutiny. Sex Lab will be testing the effects of alcohol, using a novel sex toy to turn them on, and giving them a mysterious unnamed drug to get to the bottom of what the female libido is all about. All week, the women have been talking about what turns them on and off. Sex Lab wanted to discover the women's natural levels of arousability before starting today's first scientific experiment.
If a guy's got his finger up your arse because he thinks that's going to give you an orgasm, you say, look, you know, what the hell are you doing? You complete cultural philistine.
Yeah. I just love naked men. They're great. That's what turns you... A naked man with an erection
something that makes me melt.
This guy, I dated this one guy. Oh, this is terrible. He's so great. We were going out, and it got to the point where I couldn't take it. No, it was every single time he came. It was just like, it would shoot like 12 feet all over the wall. You know that it would choke me. It would come out so fast. I would literally gag. I've never had a gagging problem. It would hurt that it got to the point where it turned me off sex with him completely.
At first glance, it seems that what turns you on or off is a matter of subjective preference. But Cynthia Graham, a scientist from the Kinsey Institute in the States, has pioneered a definitive objective test to measure just how sexually arousable every woman is.
We believe that whether an individual becomes sexually aroused or not will depend on a balance between how aroused or turned on they are and how inhibited or switched off they might be. Basically, at the Kinsey Institute, we've been working on a model that really proposes that arousal, sexual arousal, depends on a balance between excitation on the one hand and inhibition on the other. So, to give you an example, if you're with someone really attractive, your excitation might be really high, so you might get aroused. But if you are worried, let's say, about pregnancy or STDs, that arousal might become basically decreased or inhibited because you put on the brakes. You say, I can't go there. So that's our kind of theory.
The scientific name for Cynthia's model is sexual excitation and sexual inhibition, or SESI. To put it in layman's terms, think of it as a tug-of-war between two teams. On the left is the excitation team, made up of factors such as falling wildly in love, feeling good about yourself, and being a bit tipsy. On the right is the opposition, the inhibition team, which might include genetic makeup, fear of reputation damage, and feeling ashamed. Whether or not a woman is turned on is a battle between these two opposing forces. To find out how excitable or inhibited our girls are, they've been asked to answer a set of 36 SESI questions. The questionnaire asks the women about a variety of sexual issues, including risk-taking, body image, and reputation. Cynthia's marked the questionnaires, and she's back with the answers.
How are you all? One of the things we looked at in our questionnaire, you may remember these questionnaire items, is risky situations, you know, fear of getting caught, or not fear of getting caught, possibility of getting caught, or being seen or heard having sex. For some women, and for men too, for some women that's a real turn-on. For many women it is, actually. For others, it's a complete turn-off. What do you all think about that?
I think it's very true.
It's been a time where
He arranged for me to come in to meet him. He was working for a very big bank in the city. And he had to pretend that he'd set up a business meeting with me. And then he's already booked out one of the boardrooms. So we end up going into the boardroom and then we end up having sex on his boss's table. Such a turn on. That was just like, it was just so risky, you know, and we could have been caught at any time, and there was no way to lock the door, and that was great.
Other questions ask women about inhibition. Cynthia was interested to find out how our women responded.
It scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, me too.
If you said do it in bright lights, I've never been naked in bright lights in front of anyone, even when I've been going out with someone. Do it in a bedroom with the lights on, I'd be like, absolutely no chance in hell. But do it in the dark at the back of the cinema. Then, so it's kind of...
with people in the row behind or whatever.
To me, inhibition is about my self-esteem and my body image. But there's also the inhibitions of when being surrounded by other people. So there's kind of... Then for me, that's complete extremes on those two.
The questionnaire also deals with the reasons why women tend to be inhibited. One major factor is how women feel they're judged by society.
Women, even in this day and age, worry about reputation. What do you all think about that?
I know a lot of guys who give it all that, oh yeah, she's easy. But the woman is a very respectable, nice girl. But just because she's not shy to jump into bed with people, guys instantly, she's easy, and therefore not girlfriend materials.
I don't think it applies to every woman. I think that a lot of women, if they are clever about it, that they can get away with it and be on equal terms as a guy.
Yeah, I'm just saying reputation.
You still get called a man-eater. You get called a man-eater.
So with the results to hand, Cynthia can now give the women some feedback.
So let's talk first about the excitation one. I'll give you your scores.
The girls are going to be marked on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being least excitable, 4 being the most.
Hannah, score is 3.9 out of 4, which is almost a 4. Kaz, your score is 3.7. Emma, 2.7.
With the scores for excitation handed out, it's time to turn to inhibition. Once again, the scores go from 1 to 4, 1 being least inhibited, 4 being the most.
Okay, so the inhibition score is basically completely separate, as I said, is getting at how likely you are in a whole variety of situations to be switched off. Highest for inhibition was Emma. And who do you think would be the lowest in inhibition?
Either one of those two.
Yes, it was Hannah. You know each other. That's great. So here are the scores from 1 to 4, okay? Emma's score 3.4 and Kaz 1.6. Actually, you're the same score as Hannah.
So what does Cynthia's questionnaire tell us? It seems that Hannah's libido is very strong because she has high levels of excitation and very low inhibition. Going back to our tug-of-war teams, Hannah's results look like this. Her excitation team has 3.9 people, but only 1.6 people on the inhibition team. So it's clear which force would be strongest. For her then, many situations are arousing. Emma's tug-of-war, on the other hand, is not so easily won. Her excitation team is quite strong with 2.7 people, but her inhibition team is even stronger with 3.4 people pulling in the opposite direction. So the inhibition team would win the day. As a result, she's less likely to bed hop. So why are Hannah and Emma so far apart on this scale? For Hannah, the answer might lie in hormones. Yesterday, Hannah found out that the length of her ring finger relates to the amount of testosterone she was exposed to in the womb. Her whopping ring finger, which was significantly longer than the rest of the groups, is an indication of very high sexual excitability.
More testosterone in the...
You've had quite a lot of testosterone.
Yeah, I have, haven't I?
Yeah, you have. Now,
Hannah, how many millimeters different are you?
6.
6.
Give or take.
Not 0.6. Actual
no, 6.
And I'm actually 3
That's
different.
huge.
Yeah.
And I'm 3 different.
I know.
Other things which may affect where you are on the excitation-inhibition scale Maybe strict upbringing, religious background and childhood experience. Emma had a pretty restrictive education, and this might contribute to her high levels of inhibition.
I went to boarding school from the age of sort of 7.5, 8 up until I was 18. And it's kind of, I think it's a situation in it. Had I been in a mixed school from the age of 7, I think you're a lot more aware of it.
But where you are on the sexual scale is not set in stone. It can change over time, even from one day to the next. Falling suddenly and wildly in love can make a normally very inhibited woman really let go. And we've all had experiences where a couple of glasses of wine have loosened us up and led us to do something outrageous, even if you're the most inhibited person ever.
Eric, ready for another?
Eric Janssen has flown over from the Kinsey Institute for Sex Research to conduct an experiment into just how alcohol affects women's sexual response.
Alcohol can lead to disinhibition, or being less inhibited, as most people probably know. But there's still a lot of things that we don't know about it, how exactly things work.
Eric has set up the lab to see exactly what happens to women's sexual arousal after drinking alcohol. The women will watch 2 of the Kinsey's finest pornographic film clips. The first clip they will watch while sober. The second clip they'll watch after barman Eric has plied them with alcohol. The experiment tests for 2 things: how aroused a woman feels, which she indicates with a lever, and how aroused a woman's body actually is, which is measured with a vaginal probe to detect increased blood flow in the vagina.
What you see here is what we call the vaginal pulse amplitude, or VPA. And it's the main measure that's used in research on sexual arousal in women to index their physiological sexual arousal.
Our 2 guinea pigs for this experiment are Kaz and Andrea.
Took her to all of her favourite bars, all of her clubs, got her completely wankered, took her home and then shagged her for about 12 hours.
I'm not into porn. I find watching men and women go at it makes me feel like just like giving up sex completely just grosses me out.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to our lab. You comfortable?
As comfortable as I can be.
The 2 film clips are a naked tryst around a campfire and cunnilingus on the beach.
Oh.
Having watched the pornography sober, the second part of the experiment can begin.
Oh dear.
Yes, we said 1 glass, but we didn't say it was going to be a small one.
Gosh, okay.
Oh wow.
You should have got me to make this. Eric, ready for another? Didn't even touch the sides, Eric. Excuse me.
With a couple of sea breezes under their belts, the women can now settle down to watching some more choice erotica.
I'm very excited about this study. I'm very intrigued and interested in seeing what will happen and what we will find.
Sea breezes and hardcore pornography, a rather unique scientific experiment. The results are ready to deliver to the women. In all previous experiments, Eric has found that while alcohol makes women feel more sexy, it has no effect on genital response. It'll be interesting to see whether our girls can form.
Is this going to be on grass?
I don't know. I'm curious to see physically. I think I was still a little aroused, but...
Didn't get the lesbians, fuck's sake. Sorry.
That's unfair.
Yeah, you think I would have got the dykes, wouldn't you? It's quite hurt.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Didn't make a difference then, to be honest. Even the turtles turned me on.
Eric's going to look at the girls' subjective response with the lever. How aroused were their minds telling them they were?
Okay, what you see
First
here-
up, Kaz.
What you indicated with the lever during the two films, the blue line is is your response after you had a drink.
After I'd had a drink.
Yeah, and the red one is before.
You know those up and down bits? That's when the blowjobs were on.
Oh, you felt a bit more aroused after you had a drink.
Both lines refer to how Kaz used the lever to indicate how turned on she was feeling, with the blue line representing how sexy she felt after a drink. From the graph, it's clear that Kaz's brain told her she was more up for sex with a drink inside her. Eric also has data for Andrea's subjective response, as indicated with the lever.
Here are yours.
I really don't think I like porn in my head, so this is really...
Yeah.
I couldn't even watch it straight.
And quiet.
Honestly,
Well, it's important to keep in mind that even though you might not like it...
Oh, I think down there
You were
was
trying.
definitely liking it, including things that I thought would be not working, so...
Once again, by looking at the difference between the blue and the red lines, it's clear that Andrea felt she was more turned on after she'd had a drink. There are no surprises here. Both Kaz and Andrea's subjective results confirm what most of us already know. With a stiff drink inside you, you do feel more horny. But did the women's vaginas respond to alcohol? First up is Kaz's genital response.
Oh!
Not a
I
whole lot.
just shut up there, didn't I?
Slightly, but see, your VPA didn't go down at the point that you went down with the lever.
Oh yeah, but you can't control your fluidity when you're in that state of mind, can you?
There you go.
So, with the blue line higher than the red one, we can see that Kaz's vagina responded to alcohol. So not only did Kaz's brain respond to the cocktails, her body did too. What about Andrea's vagina?
Your VPA, or your blood flow.
You're going up and down, and then up.
In other words, your genital response during this film clip after you've had some alcohol was higher.
Do you notice how I'm not really interested in porn, except when I'm drunk?
No.
Andrea's vagina responded to the porn and responded even more strongly after a drink.
I know that with alcohol, I'm 100% sure that with alcohol, it's like the biggest aphrodisiac for me. It's terrifying. So basically, Andrea should not get drunk. There we go, proof in the pudding.
In most studies so far in women, we have found that genital response will go down. Or at the very best, it may not be affected, but not necessarily go up. In this study, we found that in both women, that their subjective sexual arousal went up, indeed, as predicted. Their physiology, however, also went up, and in particular in Andrea. The effects were strongest in Andrea.
And this is what surprised Eric the most. Unlike the majority of women, not only did Kaz and Andrea feel more up for sex after a drink, but their vaginas were more up for it too.
It may have something to do with their experience with alcohol. Of course, you cannot very easily generalize from a study like this, and it is clear that what alcohol does to you will depend on how much alcohol, but also who you are and how much experience you have with alcohol, and how responsive you are sexually to begin with.
Both our women scored at the low end of the sexual inhibition scale, so alcohol is likely to remove most obstacles to sex.
Because a lot of the stories you hear involve alcohol.
But
Andrea's past experiences with the demon drink have left her wary of losing control.
Before, when I'm drunk at a party and I'll just start kissing anybody, it's terrible, it's really embarrassing.
And Kaz, who says she's lesbian, has even jumped the other side of the fence when she's had a drop to drink.
Do you think that,
it was only when I was drunk I slept with 3 guys. I've never done it when I was sober.
Really?
Absolutely. But I had to be completely wrecked before I did.
To lose your inhibitions.
This was 1 year ago.
What? I didn't realise it was that. Really?
Yeah, I did this last year. This was like last year.
Oh my God, Kat.
No, I came out when I was 18. I slept with 3 guys last year.
Wow.
Did he know that you was a lesbian?
Yeah, he was like one of my best friends.
Me.
And then I was just kind of like, I'm getting a cab home. Do you wanna get in the cab with me? He was like, yeah, okay. I was like, do you wanna come round? Like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, fancy a shag? And he was like, but Kaz, you're gay. I was like, yeah, so? Do you want to try it? He was like, oh, okay then.
Oh, that's mad.
I know,
Fair
it
play
was.
to you,
It's all right, I
Kaz.
wanted a good hard shag, but I don't want to be with guys.
Yeah, drugs have the same effect, but, you know, a drug that's illegal...
The effect of alcohol on sex drive is little surprise for most of us. What's more difficult to understand is the power of the mind in female sexuality, and more particularly, how mood affects sex drive.
This is a really, really new area of research, and hardly any studies have been done that look at individual differences in how mood can affect people. So this is still, to some degree, a mystery.
What makes research into mood so tricky is that women appear to be highly variable. A lot of women feel more turned on when they're happy and disinterested in sex when they're upset, but a significant minority report the opposite. Eric has devised a study to find out how different mood states might affect a woman's desire for sex. The study involves showing our girls 3 film clips and photographs of 25 men. Before the film clips begin, the women must note down their initial neutral mood state and how likely they would be to have sex with each of the men. They then watch 3 different films, each chosen specifically to induce different mood states. Firstly, a clip from The Silence of the Lambs, to make them anxious. Secondly, they watch the most upsetting scene of Sophie's Choice, guaranteed to make the hardest of women weep. And lastly, they watch a clip from The Natural, to make them feel happy. After each clip, the women note their mood state and take another look at the men to decide which ones they might want to have sex with.
So the study focuses on how different mood states may affect your sexual interest, your sexual responsiveness in general, and the majority of people will say that their sexual interest goes down when they're depressed.
So how did our girls respond?
Most of you express less interest in having sex with the man on the photos after the depression one.
I found that 2 of them had a feel of violence towards women. Like,
so did you feel more than just sad about it? You mean it also?
Angry and completely sexually unaroused, that's for sure.
Some people actually report the opposite. When you're in a negative mood state, when you're depressed, some people may actually use sex to feel better.
The one with the woman and the child, I felt very stressed, but afterwards looking at the photographs of the men, it made me kind of, I think, probably more prone to saying, yeah, perhaps I'd get together with them.
After watching the happy clip, are our women more inclined to have sex?
Most people are a bit more interested in sex when they're feeling good. It's not surprising. Some people become less interested in sex when they're in a really good mood.
I understand why you said that that we're less likely to regret something, sleeping with someone, when we're in a happy state of mind, because when you're feeling quite low or anxious or depressed, you're looking for that instant comfort. So usually it's the nearest person to you, or you might get induced by alcohol and then do something you think might make you feel better. But when you're happy, you don't need that, because you're already in a medium where you can be with someone that you know, you trust, you know, and you're in that better frame of mind.
It's consistent with the research on sexual risk-taking, where it seems that for most people, happiness or feeling good is something protective almost, like people tend to take better care of themselves often when they feel good.
I've got a couple of female friends who I'll know when they're going through a rough patch or feeling down, because they'll be out there shagging their asses off. Yeah. But when they're happy, they don't really have much interest in guys, and they can go through months of not, and then suddenly it'll be loads in the case of a month. It's a very good indicator.
Eric has analysed the women's responses. 2 of the women in particular stand out. At one end of the spectrum, Hannah's desire to have sex increased with each of the film clips.
Hannah, you were consistent.
It didn't change. What? I didn't change.
It went up. Your ratings of the man went up when you are anxious, when you're depressed, and when you feel good.
Yeah. I find that if I feel anxious, depressed, sad, tired, whatever, I will do that to make me feel happy again.
Carleen was not affected by the mood inductions or the mood films at all. She started with a relatively low level of interest at the beginning of the study and it stayed low. Carleen, your interest didn't vary much during today's study, no matter what mood you were in, apparently.
No.
You didn't feel too interested in those guys.
No, not sexually, no. I mean, I looked at a couple and I thought they were nice, but that was it.
Overall, we found that mood affects women's sexual interest. Not surprising in itself. I mean, emotions affect how you feel because they are about how you feel. But what is more interesting, I think, is that there are quite a number of differences among the women even here.
The Truth About Female Desire has invited 8 women to put their sex lives under the microscope to discover the secrets of female sexuality. They've been learning about the precise nature of female libido and the factors which can have an impact on it. So far, they've discovered that every woman's sex drive hangs on a delicate balance between excitation and inhibition, and that mood can radically affect your keenness to have sex. The women are being given a new device to find out whether it's possible to increase sex drive by physically stimulating the body rather than the mind.
Newest items on the market, designed to arouse you to the point that the only slightest touch is needed to make you smile.
The device, which is newly available over the internet, consists of 2 electrode pads and a variable control. Because it's a sex toy and not a medical aid, the manufacturers can't make specific claims about how it works. However, it seems that it sends electrical impulses up the leg to the perineal nerve, which is responsible for vaginal lubrication.
Very gently turn the dial on the unit so that the red light comes on. Continue to turn it until you feel a gentle pulsating sensation at one or both electrode pads. This is now the correct setting, so just sit back for 30 minutes, wait for the sensation and enjoy the feel.
Getting in the right position seems to matter even here, when your partner is a dial and a couple of wires.
Maybe we need to have our legs up.
Yeah, probably because your legs are bent. Because if your legs are bent, you
yeah, okay.
Tell
us if it works first, then we'll all do it.
Yeah. I haven't come.
Not gonna come.
I can only feel the left-hand side, not the right. Oh, there.
I wonder what happens if...
Ooh, my toes. Wow, putting your legs up really helped.
Charlie, can you feel anything?
I think it's getting there.
Actually, I think, girls, I know I said legs up, but straight, your body...
Soon enough, the most highly sexed of the group begin reporting certain
I'm
symptoms.
starting to feel it within 2 minutes of putting my legs up.
Do I switch off?
Yes, it is starting to work, thank God. Seriously.
How good are we talking here?
It just feels really, it actually just makes you want to have sex like right away. Oh man.
It's like you lubricating kind of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You want to go into a room and start masturbating right away. Yeah. It's like when you masturbate for a few minutes and you start to feel that.
Oh my word, this is mad.
Right, that's frustrating.
Oh, it's really frustrating.
The first few minutes are good, and then you feel like unfulfilled.
Do you feel sexy though? Close your eyes. Do you fancy a shot?
Yeah, I feel sexy as.
You do. You just
I feel sexy and I feel horny and I feel
like so relaxed and just wake up just after.
For the women who are highly sexed anyway, the device works frustratingly well.
Like you're like you're getting turned on, like when you were back.
And you know that you're going to, it's like 2 minutes away and you feel
let me enjoy this.
Oh, yeah.
Some others, though, are not so lucky. Carleen doesn't seem to have responded to anything today.
And I was just thinking, I'm a lost cause. Nothing seems to work.
She has a hectic lifestyle and little time to spend with her husband. While she enjoys sex and has no trouble reaching orgasm, she rarely feels spontaneous desire. She was not affected by any of the mood clips, and she wasn't interested in any of the men we showed her. Even the electrode device left her cold. To try and find out what's behind her lack of desire, she's asked for a one-to-one with Cynthia Graham, who, as well as being a sexologist at the Kinsey Institute, is also a sexual counsellor. Carleen's primary worry is the difference between her own sex drive and her husband's.
And I think, because he has a higher libido than I do, it is a problem because I think I could be doing so many other things at the time, and he will be expecting me to be a bit more amorous at some point, and I'm not.
I want to just reassure you that you're really not unusual, and you know, it's not something that I think you should see that needs to be fixed. I know you feel like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but I think that there's so many pluses in your relationship, it seems like to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a partner you're attracted to, you enjoy your sexual relationship, you can reach orgasm. There's just a lot of pluses there. Just to reassure you that you're really not unusual.
Like Carleen, many women worry they're not as highly sexed as they should be. And with the introduction of Viagra for men, the pharmaceutical industry has been chasing the Holy Grail, a pill which would guarantee sexual satisfaction for women. And the financial rewards for whoever claims to have found a cure for female sexual dysfunction are enormous.
I think there's a lot of hype about women's sexuality out there, and I think that's increasing in the last few years, with the drug companies sort of racing to develop, you know, some kind of pill or medication. And I think women should be aware that a lot of it is hype, and that a lot of treatments are being put forward that have not been properly evaluated.
There's so much intimacy.
With this in mind, Erik Janssen is going to test 2 different substances on our women to see if it has an effect on their sex drives.
In this hand I have a bowl with 3 necklaces, and they have a pheromone-like drug in them. And this pheromone-like drug increases sexual arousal. In the other hand, I have a drug that, just like this one, was initially FDA approved for treatment of nasal congestion. They took it off the market after some later trials showed that in addition to things like drowsiness, it actually could negatively impact sexual response. It is perfectly safe for the rest, other than the drowsiness, you know, and the possible negative effect on sexual response. This one is also perfectly safe. The only side effects that are known about it are that it can increase your body temperature a little bit. It could lead to some facial flushing, and it could also create a bit of a dry throat. So let's start with Emma.
Yeah. I get the sex.
This is the...
That's because you're on a mission to
This
get
is
me.
the pheromone-like drug.
He's given a sexual stimulant to Emma, Charlie and Carleen, all scoring at the lower end of sexual arousability, and a sexual depressant to Julie, Amy and Hannah,
Take me down.
3 of the most highly sexed women in the group.
Bye. Bye, Dr. Erik. Bye.
Don't think it would smell like a nasal congestion.
What does yours smell of? Does it have a smell? A distinct smell?
To start with, it's got a bit of alcohol-y, but no,
has it?
It's worn off. It's quite florally.
Is it?
I'm getting kind of I really want it to go over.
Yeah. Mine just smells of like cinnamon.
Woo! See, it's already starting to work.
Look at me like that.
Yeah, Emma's all perky. Look at Emma, she's gone all perky. You've got perky. Getting perky. You got a semi on. You got a half mast.
And if you start this up your vagina, you get instant.
Oh my goodness.
No.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
She really wants a hard on, doesn't she? Look at her.
It's meant to make you drowsy.
Get the most out of it I can.
Is it? I am drowsy though.
What none of the women know is that the necklaces are all the same and contain no active substance whatsoever. And this is at the heart of the problem faced by the pharmaceutical industry. It's called the placebo effect.
The idea behind this placebo study was to look at how expectations, suggestions, sort of how the mind can affect your own sexual response.
Earlier today, Erik played the women an erotic story over headphones, followed by a number of questions to assess their levels of arousal. The women will now repeat the procedure wearing the placebo necklaces. Earlier, Julie discovered that she scored 3.4 for sexual excitation. This makes her sex drive one of the highest in the group.
I love dressing up for men.
Yeah.
It's great. I love dressing up. It's surprising, kind of. They walk in and then it's like a cheeky...
Naughty schoolgirl.
Naughty schoolgirl, French maid, sexy secretary.
Yeah.
Naughty schoolgirl is always
Is it for...
the easiest to do as well, without anything.
Is it more for your partner or is it more for yourself?
For me.
Before giving her the necklace, Eric played her an erotic story to find out what her normal response would be. True to form, she liked it a lot.
And I was so naturally wet, I knew I was going to come quickly, especially as the jacuzzi jets were adding to the tension.
I'm finished.
Okay. So what did you think of it?
She's a dirty mare, isn't she? My word. Yeah, it was a good story. Yeah, I wouldn't mind being in that situation myself.
No, so it was easy to imagine yourself in that. Okay. Well, you'll get another story possibly later today.
Oh, good. I like these stories.
See you later.
Thanks.
In the meantime, Eric's necklace has knocked the stuffing out of her.
Oh, I'm tired.
Could we stop stuffing them up our noses?
So with the magic necklace doing its thing, we were interested to see how she'd respond to a second erotic story.
Ready?
I knew that I was as keen as him. He felt gorgeous, and as he started to kiss me down the throat and onto my breasts, I started to feel very aroused. He then reached out and got a large cube of ice from his drink and started to rub it on my nipples.
Comparing this with her response before the necklace, it's easy to see that she's less than round.
Julie seems to almost fall asleep while she was sitting here. And she said, well, it has been a long day on lunch, but it is interesting that it happened exactly that day, that she was so tired.
Finished.
Okay.
Hi.
So, what was it like this time?
I couldn't get into it at the beginning. I got into it towards the end, right at the end, when I was interested, but I just couldn't concentrate on it.
So, in terms of sexual arousal?
Not really. A little bit.
I don't know if it had anything to do with my libido and my concentration levels or because I was tired before, but I definitely didn't feel as much aroused on the second one than the first one.
And Julie wasn't the only highly sexed woman who felt knocked sideways by the placebo. Hannah, whose high sex drive puts her at the top of the pack, clearly feels affected. And before long, she's asleep. Charlie's necklace contains what she believes to be a sexual stimulant. She too claims it to be effective.
Made me feel a little bit tingly, more so than I thought it would. And with the experiment, physically it made a difference. If this mystery substance was to come onto the market, then I think I would buy it.
The placebo effect is fascinating. And the important message here is it's very important to study in a carefully controlled way any medication that is supposed to improve sexual functioning.
Let's talk a little bit about the pheromone study. So first tell me, what did you make of it?
If you were sat watching the group, you obviously split us up. These lot were all like this, all perky and
chatting away. Emma, you were so chatty.
Yeah, you were really chatty, and you were also like eyes everywhere, and you're like doo doo doo. And then there was us three just like.
We went on the floor because we were so tired.
My eyes pinged open. I was like,
Why was
Three
that?
of you were sitting like this.
I know.
We were sitting on the couch. It was so
Watching.
weird.
It was cool,
so
wasn't
weird.
it?
You looked really perky.
Yeah, I remember you were like, Charlie, you're all right, but you're bright red, and you're like,
was I red?
yeah,
Was I?
You went the colour of your hair.
Did I flush?
You were, and you were also like this.
Well, do I have news for you?
Yeah. But I did feel so high.
There was no drug in any of them.
I knew it! I knew it! I remember saying to you, I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if it was all a placebo?
Are you sure?
Because
I was definitely drowsy, and I'm not going to lie, I felt drowsy, and my legs felt heavy. My mind told me that drug was doing something. I wasn't faking it.
I think it's amazing. And for me, what is most amazing is that things, just like there was, like for me, there was a physical kind of show of what I didn't even know I was flushed until these girls have just told me now. But I flushed. But
the results of the placebo study clearly show the importance of the mind in female sexuality, and how strong the effects can be of the mind and how you feel sexually as a woman.
there is something going on, and you're actually
I find it quite mind-blowing.
It is a real challenge for the pharmaceutical industry to develop drugs that are really effective for women. Viagra works for most men, at least in terms of how it affects their physiology, and it still remains to be seen how happy they're going to be with it in the long run. But it is quite effective. In women, it seems to be a different story. Drugs like Viagra can increase blood flow in the vagina in women, just like they would in men. However, that doesn't necessarily translate into increased sexual arousal as felt by women. So even though drugs like Viagra might be effective in the genitalia, in women that doesn't necessarily translate in increased desire or sexual arousal.
There is no wonder drug to treat women's sexual desire, low desire, and there will never be a wonder drug. And the reason for that is that the reasons that women have low sexual desire are huge. There are a huge number of reasons. You'd also need, women discuss low sexual desire being because of a partner being unromantic. I mean, how do you develop a pill to make your partner romantic? It's just not going to happen.
All day today, for some unknown reason, I think it's because we've been talking about desire and arousal. Every time we've been sat on the couches or we've been sat at lunch, I haven't actually listened to anyone. My head has just gone off thinking about sex all day. That's all I've been thinking about all day.
Because I came in with absolutely no libido, having had nothing for a year, and now suddenly, talking about it all and whatever, it's like, I'm like, they should send everyone to these, camps.
Sex camps. How often do you actually talk about?
The controlling force in female sex drive seems to be in the mind. Perhaps if we learned to engage with our inner world, we'd understand and enjoy our sexuality more. Jenny Trent Hughes is a relationship counsellor. She's come in to talk to our women about how fantasy can play a crucial role in preparing the brain for pleasure.
I think that fantasies play a hugely important role in female sexuality because you have a lot of women who actually need the freedom of fantasy to explore their boundaries and do things that they're not possibly comfortable with doing. So fantasizing is absolutely brilliant.
I have, for example, being abducted by aliens. And
Really?
Okay.
Lay down on a table with all these aliens.
Does it really?
Do you know what? I read this book about alien abductions, and there's all these women explaining how they went on these ships, and these aliens were prodding them and stuff. And I read it a long time ago, and something got in my head. And oh my God!
A recent survey of British women's sexual habits threw up some surprising statistics. When asked, 35% of women reported fantasizing about watching two men having sex together.
I fantasize about two men together, and it's very voyeuristic. I'm looking at them, I'm not being involved with them. And I get off on the kind of fantasy of seeing two men together, and I know that really deters other people.
And the number one fantasy for women? Submission and domination romped home with a staggering 55%.
I used to have this fantasy that I was chained to a wall, and it was like medieval night period, and it was like a torture chamber, and I was in chains out and across, and waiting for the person to come in and do something, and I knew that it wasn't going to be nice, and I really got off on that, and it was like I was a child, and I used to be really scared that I was thinking these things. But I think where it came from was I used to read these discovery packs, which told you about history, and there was this one middle page in the Guy Fawkes edition. But it was describing all these torture implements, and it had a picture of a big muscly guy who seared someone down with a hot tongue thing, and I used to go, whoo, but I didn't like the thought of the torture implements, but I did kind of like something in there.
But do you not sometimes have fantasies that are absolutely opposite to who you are? I'm a pretty aggressive, controlling person, and I will confess that I have a few submissive fantasies.
A lot of women have fantasies about rape and things like that. How does that work?
Don't think of the word rape. Because most of the time, if I were to sit down with every woman who has what I call a submission fantasy, it is not really going to be about rape. That's not what it's about at all. Submission fantasies are very common and very important for women. Over the past few decades, the role of women in society have changed. Women have gotten a lot more power and a lot more responsibility. So you have some women who have submission fantasies because they want to give the reins of responsibility over to someone else. They're tired of being in charge. Now, on the other hand, you'll have some women who are quite timid with their sexuality, and they're afraid to stand up and say, I want to do this or that. So it's the kind of, he made me do it. If someone comes along and forces them to do a certain act, then they can enjoy it and not have to be responsible for having made the choice.
And I had no problem with that.
But for most women, fantasies remain just that. Almost 70% never act out their fantasies with a partner.
Mine's the same. My fantasies are literally something I will never act upon. It's just something that's
That's
up
really
here.
funny because my fantasies, I usually act upon them.
That's weird. People think different ways.
Like if I think about having sex with a certain person and where and when, and you know, I'll think, oh, that's really nice. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow, and I usually do.
In the final episode of the series, we're getting down to some good old bump and grind to try and get to the bottom of the big one, the unfathomable, ecstatic orgasm.
Volcanic eruption.
And it's time for lift-off tomorrow at 11:05. Next on 4, a pair of joyriders pick up more than they bargained for in the Randomer.